You've been taught to be respectful, to ask, to wait for a sign, to make sure she's comfortable. And while the intention behind this seems noble, grounded in politeness and consideration, the actual effect on the dynamic is often devastating. Because women don't surrender to the man who asks for intimacy, they surrender to the man who creates it, who cultivates the atmosphere where intimacy becomes the only natural outcome. She doesn't want to be convinced through words or pleas. She wants to be led into a space where her own desire takes the reins. She wants a man whose presence feels like gravity, not the oppressive weight of pressure, not the weakness of begging, but the profound, undeniable pull of inevitability. It's a force that draws her in because it feels intrinsic, uncontrived, and utterly real. And once you truly grasp this fundamental shift in perspective, you'll find you never have to explicitly ask her for anything again. Instead, she'll offer it all willingly, breathlessly, even desperately drawn by the current you've established. This isn't merely a tactic or a clever dating strategy. It's a profound psychological awakening, a recalibration of how attraction and connection actually function at their deepest levels. And embracing this truth allows you to experience what real, authentic power feels like. A power rooted in presence and certainty, not demand. One critical realization is this: you don't ask for intimacy, you awaken it within her. The very moment you frame intimacy as a question needing her explicit permission, "Can I kiss you? Do you want to?" you've inadvertently given away your power. It's not that wanting her is wrong. Desire is essential. The crucial error lies in needing her conscious, verbal approval to act on that desire. This neediness, this perceived lack of conviction, triggers a subtle but powerful resistance in her body, a defensive no reflex. Even if her heart and deeper instincts might be leaning towards a yes, it forces her into her logical mind, away from the flow of feeling. Here's the profound trick rarely articulated. You don't ask a woman for intimacy. You create a compelling space, a charged atmosphere, where her resistance simply dies on its own, starved of its fuel, your doubt. Let's be unequivocally clear. This approach is not about manipulation or coercion. It's about emotional leadership. It's about radiating such unwavering certainty, making her feel so profoundly safe, so deeply seen, so subtly and securely owned by the dynamic you create, that her body grants you permission through its responses, long before her conscious mind formulates words. If you want to touch her, don't instinctively reach out with your hands first. Start with the intangible. Start with the air surrounding her. Start by cultivating the very space that exists between your energy and hers, saturating it with intention and presence. Because women don't say yes when they're directly asked. They say yes when they're deeply moved, when the feeling within them becomes undeniable. The man who understands this doesn't wield words like a timid request. He uses them like an irresistible invitation laced with a hint of thrilling danger. He says things like, "I don't want to rush this moment. I want to see if your energy truly matches mine." Or, with quiet observation, "I like how you look at me when you're trying not to let it show." See the fundamental difference? He doesn't beg. He masterfully builds tension. He crafts the interaction so she feels intimacy is already unfolding subtly, silently, in the glances, the pauses, the proximity. He makes the connection feel inevitable, and all that remains is for her to consciously surrender to the current already pulling her. This is the core of the psychological shift. You don't ask with your mouth. You ask with your entire energy field, your unwavering presence. You lead her gracefully into a choice her deeper emotions have already made, making the conscious yes feel like an act of claiming her own desire. Here's how this leadership manifests tangibly. You hold her gaze just a heartbeat longer than social norms dictate, creating a silent, resonant connection. You lower your voice, not to perform some caricature of sexy, but to naturally slow down her racing thoughts, drawing her focus inward to the feeling. Your touch is deliberate and confident. Perhaps one hand resting lightly on her lower back, guiding without grasping, not two hands clamoring for attention. You lean back slightly, creating space, rather than leaning in with needy eagerness. Because the man genuinely in control doesn't chase. He magnetically pulls through his calm assurance. Every subtle movement you make should communicate, I'm not anxiously waiting for your permission. I'm patiently waiting for our alignment, for the resonance between us to reach its peak. If she feels truly safe and attuned within this frame you hold, she will instinctively lean closer. If she doesn't, she'll hold back. Crucially, either way, you didn't plead or ask. You led the interaction with your presence. And here's the most critical psychological lever. When you remain genuinely unbothered, unruffled, and completely centered, even if she initially hesitates or says no in some form, that's when her maybe transforms into burning curiosity. Because now you've demonstrated you are not a man who needs her specific yes for validation. You are a man who attracts yes effortlessly through your intrinsic state. And that undeniable aura is precisely what makes her feel like giving herself to you was entirely her own inspired idea, a choice born from within her, not imposed from outside. That feeling of autonomy is powerful. That's not a cheap trick. That's the essence of Stoic seduction, grounded in self-possession and emotional leadership. And this approach, rooted in authenticity and presence, never truly fails. The profound psychological mechanism is making her genuinely believe the desire originated within her. You want her to want you with intensity? Then cease all efforts to logically convince her. Instead, focus relentlessly on becoming the man who understands one primal, undeniable truth. Women don't surrender to overt pressure or pleading. They surrender to the feeling of implicit permission, a permission granted by the environment and the man's leadership, making surrender feel like freedom. And the only man they truly surrender to is the one who masterfully orchestrates the moment so it feels like the burning idea wasn't planted by him, but was discovered, unearthed from within her all along. That's the subtle psychological art. Not manipulation, but masterful, resonant invitation. You don't move physically closer because you verbally secured allowance. You move in because the very space separating you is already thick, heavy, and humming with an unspoken yes. She deeply wants to feel like her own desire took overwhelming control. Like she couldn't stop the momentum. Liché is the one who decisively crossed the invisible line. Not you. Why is this so crucial? Because when it feels like it was unequivocally her idea, her initiative, there's no lingering guilt to process, no subconscious shame to rationalize, no psychological defenses to erect, only pure, unadulterated freedom. And that exhilarating sense of freedom is the ultimate gateway to her deepest, most raw, unfiltered expression of self and passion. Contrast this with the average man's approach to intimacy. He diligently builds rapport, offers flattery, signals his interest, and then, inevitably, asks the fateful questions. Can I kiss you? Do you want to go back to my place? Do you like this? And just like that, with those well-intentioned but misplaced words, he forcibly yanks her out of the feeling and into the cold realm of logic. She is suddenly required to analyze, to weigh consequences, to make a conscious decision about whether she should. But a woman doesn't fall into genuine, consuming intimacy through logical calculus. She falls when her emotions surge powerfully ahead of her rational mind, when she feels herself inexplicably drifting closer without a conscious command, when the timbre of your voice makes her lose all track of time. When you're comfortable, knowing silence makes her deliciously nervous in a way she secretly craves. The man who understands this operates differently. He doesn't push. He creates an irresistible pull without visible effort. He observes minutely how her body subtly shifts when he speaks. He notices the almost imperceptible catch in her breath. He reads the meaning in her silences, not to anxiously react or fill the void, but to respond with deeper, more potent presence. He doesn't bluntly declare, I want you. Instead, he offers the evocative observation. I like the way you look when you're holding something powerful back. Now she's spiraling internally. Now she's questioning herself. What does he see in me that I didn't consciously reveal? Why does this intense pull feel like I'm the one chasing? Because you've masterfully flipped the script. You didn't just touch her skin. You touched her core sense of self, her ego. You made her feel intriguingly exposed, not physically, but psychologically, seen in a way few achieve. And women crave that profound level of exposure precisely because it's rare, authentic, and deeply validating. And what is rare becomes intensely desired. When a woman feels like she initiated the shift, Leisha lost control to her own passion, Leisha made the decisive first move, however subtle, that memory etches itself deeply into her consciousness. She'll replay it endlessly, savoring it, because it allows her to feel two seemingly contradictory things simultaneously. Utterly empowered in her choice, and deliciously overwhelmed by sensation. Completely in control of surrendering, and yet craving more of the surrender. That potent duality is the psychological sweet spot. Mastering the delivery is paramount. What do you practically do? You consciously slow down your speech, allowing each word to land with weight. You speak with intriguingly unfinished thoughts, leaving space for her mind to wander and wonder. You don't feel compelled to answer every mundane question directly. Instead, you create captivating curiosity gaps. You allow comfortable, charged silences to hum vibrantly between you, like live electricity. You don't bluntly command, "Come over." You muse, "I was going to spend tonight alone," letting the implication hang, ripe with possibility. You don't state, "I want you." You observe with a knowing look. You're distractingly compelling. You leave subtle, enticing breadcrumbs of connection, and she follows their trail, not out of obligation, but because she feels an intrinsic need to discover where they lead, driven by the intrigue you've seeded. This is why the most intensely intimate moments are rarely born from explicit verbal permission. They blossom from rich emotional suggestion, from the unspoken understanding cultivated in the space you hold. If she feels unsure within the dynamic, she'll naturally hesitate and wait. If she feels genuinely intrigued and safe within your leadership, she will act, drawn by her own awakened desire. The ultimate goal isn't simply to extract a verbal yes. The deeper goal is to create a moment so resonant, so charged with potential, that not saying yes, not stepping into that current, would feel like a haunting missed opportunity, a regret whispering in her ear later. That feeling is what lingers with her long after. That is what truly ignites her passion. You offered her the exhilarating fantasy of absolute freedom within the encounter and the powerful illusion of initiating control. And in that potent space, she gives you her body as if it were the most natural, inevitable decision in the world, a surrender to her own deepest currents. That's not manipulation. That's psychological seduction operating at its highest, most authentic level. And the men who intuitively grasp and embody this principle, they never have to plead or ask. They simply create the magnetic, resonant moment through their grounded presence and confident energy, and then let her willingly cross the threshold into connection. 3. Understand this deeply. When you truly lead the moment with unwavering presence, she will give you everything. Her vulnerability, her passion, her trust. There's a fundamental reason she might have brushed off your compliment before. A reason she skillfully changed the subject when you tentatively hinted at taking things further. It's rarely because she lacked desire. It's almost always because, in those moments, you subtly abdicated leadership, placing the burden of initiating and carrying the moment onto her shoulders, and she instinctively didn't feel safe doing it. She felt the absence of your command. Grasp this core truth. A woman only fully opens, only truly surrenders, when she feels like you are already firmly holding the entire frame of the interaction. If she senses even a flicker of hesitation in your eyes, a tremor of self-doubt in your voice, the frantic wheels of overanalysis turning in your mind, her body will instinctively shut down. Why? Because on a primal level, she intuitively knows, this man wants me, but he doesn't yet know how to lead me confidently. And if she cannot trust you to lead her emotionally, to navigate the currents of connection with assurance, she will never truly trust you with the profound vulnerability of her body. Here's the insight most men tragically miss. Women aren't passively waiting for formal permission to surrender their passion. They are actively waiting, consciously or not, for a man who possesses the inner strength and emotional intelligence to hold that surrender once it's freely given, to contain the intensity of the moment. It's the man who speaks with deliberate slowness, whose movements radiate calm intention, who controls the subtle tempo and intensity of the encounter, like a master conductor guiding a symphony. He doesn't need her to awkwardly make the first move or carry the interaction. He sets the tone, the mood, the direction so clearly, so confidently, that her only meaningful decision becomes whether to relax into his lead and follow the current. Not because he forced her compliance, but because he made it profoundly safe, desirable, and effortless for her to simply let go, to relinquish control without fear. And crucially, this safety isn't synonymous with softness or passivity. It means radiating unshakable certainty, a deep inner knowing. He isn't internally debating, should I kiss her now? Is it okay? He's fully present, reading her subtle signals, feeling the emotional current flowing between them. And when the resonance is palpable, when the moment peaks, he doesn't ask for consent. He moves calmly, slowly, with complete presence and ownership, and lets her visceral reaction, the lean in, the parted lips, the held breath, tell him everything he needs to know. Because a woman doesn't fundamentally need you to verbally ask if she's ready. What she desperately needs is to feel, beyond any doubt, that you are ready, ready to lead, ready to hold the space, ready to receive her surrender with strength. When you step into this role and lead the moment with grounded certainty, she gets the profound relief of relaxing completely. She gets to switch off the constant calculations, the hypervigilance, the need to protect herself or perform. That mental and emotional unburdening is where her authentic femininity naturally unfurls and takes over. That's when her body responds instinctively, becoming aroused without her conscious mind needing to understand why. That's when she finds herself reaching for you spontaneously, because the energy you projected, the silent certainty you radiated, communicated unequivocally, I've got this. Let go. Follow me. And here's the poignant reality. Most women have rarely, if ever, genuinely experienced this. They're accustomed to men who rush nervously, who apologize for their own desire, who project a facade of boldness until she shows the slightest resistance, then crumble back into insecurity, becoming shaky and desperate, suddenly trying to earn what moments before they assumed. That jarring shift is when her interest evaporates. But the Stoic man, the one who moves with deliberate slowness, who speaks sparingly but listens with profound depth, who remains unshaken, he becomes a strong, calm container capable of holding her inherent emotional chaos. And that containment is precisely what she craves, because authentic feminine energy is inherently wild, fluid, and dynamic. It longs to spill over, to swirl with intensity, to express itself fully, but only in the unwavering presence of something solid, stable, and strong enough to hold it all without flinching. So if you desire true intimacy, not just access to her body, but a connection that touches her soul, then resist the urge to rush. Commit to leading. Consciously slow everything down. Your speech, your movements, the pace of escalation. Say less. Allow the weight of your eye contact to communicate volumes. Let the rhythm of your breath subtly control the emotional atmosphere of the space you share. Let your hands guide with confident assurance, never grasping with need. She will feel this shift. She will feel your centered presence permeating the interaction. And here's what unfolds next. She begins leaning in towards you almost imperceptibly, without conscious thought. Her laughter softens, becoming more intimate. She initiates subtle touches, mirroring your own calm, intentional pace. And when the moment of profound connection inevitably arrives, she gives you everything, her passion, her trust, her vulnerability. Not because she felt pressured or obligated, but because she felt profoundly chosen, seen, and desired. Because she experienced the rare, liberating gift of a moment where she didn't have to perform, didn't have to lead the dance, didn't have to carry the exhausting weight of deciding every step. That profound relief is what women are truly, deeply starving for. Not just physical pleasure, not performative romance, but the liberating relief of being able to surrender to a capable leader. And the only man who can genuinely give her that soul-deep relief is the one who steps up and leads with quiet confidence, who doesn't nervously ask, "Is this okay?" at every turn, but instead says, through the sheer power of his presence and his unwavering stillness, "This connection, this possibility, is yours when you're truly ready." And when she feels that certainty, when she trusts that leadership, she won't hesitate. She won't hide behind defenses. She won't ever forget the experience, because real, transformative intimacy isn't something you timidly ask for. It's something you co-create through presence and leadership. And the man who masters the art of creating that resonant space owns a place in her memory, and often her longing, forever. Now you understand. She doesn't want a checklist of correct behaviors. She wants to be emotionally moved into her yes, not logically negotiated into it. If you are actively becoming the man who creates magnetic presence instead of anxious pressure, embodying the shift from asking to effortlessly attracting, then integrate this knowing. And if these words have sparked an awakening, reconnecting you with a powerful truth you sensed, but perhaps forgot, then let that awareness guide you towards deeper, more authentic connection.